Well, I figure it's been a while since I've put a video up. I've been pretty busy and feel like I've been crunched for time, so I hadn't done a good job of actually doing video. So I figured I'd do this real quick. It's a little trip we did up in Georgia with some friends and Flatfenders and a few other things at the end. This is the first time my girlfriend was going to go on a camping trip like this. So we didn't have a lot of room typically, but I decided to put the hardtop on to make sure I had plenty of room for all our stuff and we didn't have to worry about anything getting wet. It ended up working out just fine, and she really enjoyed it. Our first stop was up in Athens, Georgia at my buddy Dane's place. We went there, unloaded, and we went to some property that a friend of his owns. And we did a little bit of clay shooting and just kind of hung out that first day. The next morning, we all loaded up. We headed out and followed Dane, who was actually in his girlfriend's CJ7 because his Flatfender developed a bad rod knock. We went and grabbed some breakfast, and then we went to a few places where he keeps stashes of Flatfenders and Flatfender parts and a few of his friends' places before we left town.
Only a couple of Jeeps in here.
Yeah, this one back here, I don't know if you saw that one. That one's got a PTO in the back of it. Oh, it's still there? Yeah. I have the PTO. Well, hard to get the transfer case on mine. I still have it. Oh, really? Yeah, that's about one of those $450. Good? Yeah, they're pricey. Make a deal. So you. Those Jeeps are so maneuverable.
We headed out of there and ended up at Toka Falls, which is behind a college, and it was well worth it. A complete accident. Very beautiful. We then headed and got some gas as everybody was getting low, and we went to world famous Sam G Land. He's a folk artist that has all this art around the outside of his house, and he invites anybody to come by. It's a cool little roadside attraction. It's behind a gas station, not the easiest to find, but it's there. You just got to kind of look and know where it's at. But look it up sometime if you're in the area. After that, we started heading towards Clayton, Georgia, and we stopped at this little cafe along Old 441 as we were trying to take old back roads and see scenic things. We had a nice little lunch, and it was actually very good. And then we headed up towards Tiger, Georgia, and went to Goats on the Roof and had ice cream and just had a good old time. We then headed to Black Rock Mountain State Park. This is where we decided to camp. We already had reservations. It's a beautiful place, and it's the tallest elevation of any state park in Georgia, I believe. It was a great little place to camp. The shower houses were awesome, and we'll definitely be back.
I've already been here. Somebody left the water bottle. Hey, remember I pointed? We're going up there.
Next morning, after we made breakfast and broke camp, we headed down to Black Rock Lake. It was kind of neat, and then we took a bunch of back roads on our way to Tallulah River Road, where it actually was the most beautiful drive we had. All kinds of little waterfalls, just overall beautiful. Found some other campsites that we might look into in the future. We then went to Charlie's Creek Road and ran it. It's kind of famous with the overland crowd, but it's been graded, not real tough now. After this, it kind of went off the rails. We left out of there, got some gas again, and went up to Brasstown Bald, which is the highest point in Georgia. We had plenty of time. We had plans to take some back roads to Unicoi State Park, which was where we were camping that evening. Well, we get down at Brasstown Bald, come down, and the CJ7 won't start. It acts like the engine's locked up, we don't know, and finally determined that the starter was completely shorted out. So Dane gets some phone service, calls around, finds a starter. In the meantime, we called AAA, and they had a tow truck on standby for us. Well, the guy that works at the park offered to drive Dane the next town over, which is Blairsville, to pick up the starter. Well, lo and behold, the tow truck shows up anyway. So we decided to go ahead and use the tow truck, and we followed them to Blairsville. Got the starter installed, all was well. Then we drove to Unicoi, and we got there right before dark, set camp up real quick, and headed into town just to get some dinner. And actually, dinner was really good. Came back, everybody was pretty tired, everybody went to bed. So the next morning, we get on up and take our time, eat breakfast, go into Helen, which is a cool little town if you've never been there. It's a little German-based town, kind of a tourist town. But we walked downtown and into a little German restaurant, and then headed out of there and basically just back roads all the way back to Athens. It was a little warm that day, but no issues. Ended up on a divided 4-lane highway on accident, but not a big deal because we just cruised along at 50, 55. And got back to Dane's place, and we all chilled out and ordered some pizza and took showers and just hung out. And the next morning, we loaded up and headed on home. Overall, we got about 250 miles in, roughly, maybe a little more, and we all had a great time. We plan to do it again sometime, but we don't know when quite yet. But it was really fun. And if you're scared to drive a stock 70-plus-year-old Jeep, don't be. They're pretty reliable. Now for a few more things that have been going on lately. One is the GMC is getting a little bit of a facelift. I had something come up where it needs to get cleaned up, and hopefully everybody will see what that is in the future. So right now, the old JP cart's kind of stuck off into the back corner till I get this truck cleaned up. My son got a set of used beadlocks and used 40s that he mounted up the last couple days for his Toyota, because we're slowly working on getting it back on the road. And finally, I actually had to do a small repair on the Jeep. The nut got loose on the rear gear in the transmission where the overdrive is, and started shifting hard into third at the end of the Georgia trip. And I finally pulled the top cover off it and noticed the main shaft was walking. I just got that fixed actually yesterday, so today I drove it to work. But overall, that's what's been going on. I figured you guys would enjoy a little bit of some new content. And hopefully I can get back to recording more what I'm actually doing. But thanks for watching, and go ahead and I'll say it, subscribe, because eventually it may help me. But thank you all. Bye.